On November 6th, just before dawn in the early morning hours in Quezon City, Philippines, a lifeless body was discovered on 18th Avenue, Barangay San Roque. It was 5:30 a.m., and the passers-by were horrified. They could tell it was the body of a young woman, likely in her 20s, showing unmistakable signs of overkill and brutality. Her face and chest bore multiple wounds, gunshots by the look of it. She had been cruelly discarded by the roadside, as if she were nothing more than trash. But in her final moments, she held on to a crucial clue, one that would later help solve her case. Clutched tightly in her hands was a paper bag from McDonald's, as if she were urging the living to look within it for answers. The body was soon identified as Julie Ann Rodelas, a young model with a bright future ahead of her, affectionately known to those close to her as Ja. Hi, I'm Victor, and welcome to Crime's Anatomy. This case forces us to confront the dark depths of human nature, how jealousy and hatred can warp our minds, leading us to commit the most heinous acts. At every turn, the perpetrators had the chance to stop, to reconsider, to show mercy. Instead, they chose evil. They chose to become hell for this young woman. This case is far worse than just the gunshots that claimed her life. Who was so cruelly wronged in her final hours? Ja had no personal belongings on her when she was found, except for the aforementioned McDonald's paper bag, which she held tightly in her hand. Inside was an unopened double cheeseburger and a receipt. The receipt was timestamped 2:33 a.m., indicating a purchase made on the same day her body was found. This small but significant clue would go on to help solve her case. The postmortem revealed that Ja hadn't just been shot. She had been sexually assaulted multiple times, with horrific lacerations to her private areas. The poor woman endured unspeakable pain for hours before her death. Ja had been reported kidnapped just the night before, by none other than her closest friend, the very person she had been out with. Her parents, anxiously awaiting news, were instead devastated when they received the call no parent should ever have to take. Their beloved daughter was gone, and now they were tasked with the unimaginable, identifying her body. But who was Julie Ann Rodelas? She was much more than just a pretty face. A freelance model and part-time talent for ABS-CBN, one of the top TV stations. Ja was thriving in the entertainment industry. Whether gracing the covers of magazines like FHM or appearing on TV, she poured her heart into her work. But modeling wasn't her only passion. Julie was also a dedicated student at Arellano University, working toward a degree in hotel and restaurant management. Financial hardship forced her to leave school 3 times, but modeling gigs helped her pay her way through. Her mother, Luke Rodelas, would later share that Julie had dreams of moving abroad to build a better life. For a young woman with so much promise, her future seemed limitless. On November 5th, 2012, Julie's mother recalled saying goodbye to her daughter that evening. Julie was heading out to meet her good friend, Althea Altamirano, who was accompanying her to meet a producer to discuss a potential opportunity. Ja and Althea were incredibly close, practically inseparable. They often shared clothes for their modeling gigs, and some even referred to them as sisters or twins. Ja looked up to Althea, admiring her as a role model, as Althea had been the one to help open doors to her early success. Now, Ja was starting to book even more gigs than her friend. The night began innocently enough. Julie and Althea watched a movie at the SM Mall of Asia, enjoying what seemed like just another fun night out. After the movie, they hailed a cab and got off near the World Trade Center along Diosdado Macapagal Boulevard to meet another friend. But then, at 12:40 a.m., a frantic and tearful Althea walked into the Pasay City Police Station, reporting that Julie had been abducted. She was shaking, almost inconsolable. Just minutes earlier, around 12:30 a.m., While they were walking near the World Trade Center on Gil Puyat Avenue in Pasay City, just outside downtown Manila, a car suddenly screeched to a stop in front of them. Two men jumped out, grabbed Julie, and forced her into the vehicle before speeding off. It all happened in an instant. Althea was frozen in terror, unable to fully process what she had just witnessed. Despite the urgency, she struggled to recall crucial details: the color of the car, the clothes the men wore, or even a clear description of the abductors themselves. However, one thing stood out. One of the men bore a striking resemblance to Ja's boyfriend. Fearful for her life, as we now know, just hours later at 5:30 a.m., Julie's lifeless body was found. The police reached out to Althea again for questioning, but this time she didn't show up. Her brother, Charlie Altamirano, told reporters that Althea feared for her life, terrified that she might be next. But what was Althea so afraid of? Had the two women gotten involved in something dangerous? A bad deal gone wrong? Maybe the producer they were supposed to meet wasn't what he seemed. The police knew they'd have to rely on their expertise to solve this case, especially with Althea too spooked to be of much help. The Criminal Investigation and Detection Unit, CIDU, of the Philippine National Police took over the case, starting with the crime scene. Witnesses in the area reported hearing gunshots around 5 a.m., and several mentioned seeing a dark-colored Mitsubishi Montero speeding away from where Julie's body was found. While the exact color wasn't clearly identifiable in the dim light, some witnesses were able to provide a license plate. Clutched tightly in Julie's hands was that McDonald's bag, and next to the unopened cheeseburger was a receipt, time-stamped at 2:33 a.m. It came from a McDonald's branch on UN Avenue. This raised serious doubts about Althea's account. If her story was true, how could Julie have possibly bought McDonald's just 2 hours after being abducted by two men? Reviewing CCTV footage from the restaurant, police spotted a man, likely in his late 20s or early 30s, purchasing 2 cheeseburger meals, the same meal found with Julie's body. The police finally had a lead. Further investigation into the vehicle led them to a black Mitsubishi Montero, registered to a woman named Rosalina Camboa. But the real breakthrough came when detectives interviewed Althea's neighbors. They learned that Althea was often seen being picked up by a man in a Mitsubishi Montero, a man named Fernando. He was the son of Rosalina and was also known as JR. JR bore an uncanny resemblance to the man seen in the CCTV footage buying the cheeseburgers. This was no coincidence. This revelation immediately cast doubt on Althea's story, which had already lacked key details that even witnesses and passers-by had managed to provide. But now, Althea herself had gone missing, and police suspected she was hiding. Detectives decided to put surveillance on JR's house, and their break came on November 10th, 2012, at 6 p.m. Police spotted JR's father leaving the house with a change of clothes. They discreetly tailed his black Toyota Innova, which led them straight to Apalit, Pampanga. There, they found Althea and JR seemingly in the midst of a getaway in the Mitsubishi Montero. Once in custody, both Althea and JR were interrogated about their connection to the death of Julie Ann Rodelas. The police laid out the evidence: the McDonald's receipt found at the crime scene, the CCTV footage showing JR at the UN Avenue McDonald's purchasing the cheeseburger meal that was found in Julie's possession. Althea initially stuck to the story she had told police in the early hours of November 6th, but as the officers pressed her, cracks began to form. Eventually, Althea broke, revealing a chilling plot. According to her, the abduction of Julie had been premeditated, but she was quick to claim that murder was never part of the plan. The intent, she insisted, was simply to teach Julie a lesson. Althea confessed that their friendship had soured. Although they were both part of the same modeling industry, Althea had grown to resent Julie, accusing her of being indiscreet and spreading rumors. The final blow came when Althea found out that Julie had been telling people, especially in the modeling world, that Althea had 2 children, a truth Althea had tried to keep hidden. According to her, this rumor had damaged her reputation and cost her career opportunities. To Althea, it was a betrayal she couldn't forgive. When Althea confided in JR about the rumors, he quickly agreed to help her. Together, they concocted a plan to kidnap Julie and scare her. Althea emphasized that they never intended to harm her, let alone kill her. On the night of November 5th, Althea texted Junior, revealing her location with Julie. Soon after, the black Mitsubishi Montero appeared. Althea watched as 2 men jumped out, grabbed Julie, and forced her into the vehicle. The plan was set into motion. Althea claimed that after the abduction, regret began to wash over her. She recalled wanting to stop the men and pull Julie back, but she didn't act. Instead, she cried on the street, tears she insisted were genuine. A police officer found her crying, leading her to file a report at 12:40 a.m. on November 6th. During the interrogation, Althea admitted to texting Junior, asking him to pick her up at the police station. He arrived shortly after, accompanied by his father, and the trio left together. Althea insisted she had no idea that Julie had been killed at that point. As far as she knew, Julie had only been abducted. Guys, I've watched this footage multiple times. I can't find a single tear on her. Let me know if you can. All right, there's a lot to unpack here. So, apparently, Miss Crocodile Tears over here has been very upset because she's been an angel to Ja, helping her with modeling gigs, picking clothes for her, and doing her up. But Ja has been gossiping about her. Somehow, her boyfriend is more angry about this than her, and he wants to teach her a lesson. She hesitantly agrees. I don't know, out of fear? But her boyfriend kills her, and she claims she never knew that was going to happen, even though, in the past, apparently, he's held a gun to her head. I just think if she wanted to handle it as a friend, she could have talked to Ja instead of, getting a big hairy man with a gun to take care of it. And I still can't find a single tear on her, so maybe you guys can help me out. According to her, after they left the police station around 2 a.m., they drove home, collected some clothes, and checked into a motel by 4 a.m. Later, she met up with mutual friends of hers and Julie's in Laspia City, handing over Julie's bag and sandals, items left behind during the abduction. Althea asked these friends to return the belongings to Julie's family. The couple then went into hiding at Junior's ancestral home in Appalette. Althea claimed that she wanted to go home, but that Junior forbade her from answering calls or responding to text messages. She said it wasn't until Wednesday, when her sister texted her that Julie had been found dead, that she realized what had happened. She claimed to have confronted Junior, who, according to her, feigned ignorance, claiming he had outsourced the job to some guys who handled everything. All right, I know I'm getting a bit obsessed, but her using that napkin seems about as useful as putting lipstick on a pig. I still don't see any tears. Throughout her account, Althea attempted to shift all the blame onto Junior. She conveniently claimed memory lapses after the abduction and denied knowing about Julie's death for days. But her willingness to stay in hiding cast doubt on her story, which just didn't add up. Junior's interrogation. When interrogated, Junior also denied involvement in the murder, pointing instead to a man named Jamar Wadi. According to Junior, Jamar was the one who had taken Julie to a safe house after the abduction. The police swiftly acted on this lead, raiding a safe house on Cot Cabo Street. What was supposed to be a straightforward raid erupted into a deadly firefight. Gunfire was exchanged between the police and the suspects, resulting in the death of one of the alleged perpetrators, identified as Bob Usman. Authorities managed to arrest 2 others, Jamar Wadi and Jalan Pasan. Jamar's confession. Once in custody, Jamar provided an affidavit that shed light on the crime. According to his statement, Junior had shown up at his residence on Lenoa Street around 3 p.m. on November 5th, accompanied by another man named Efron Talib. Junior came with a clear request. He wanted Jamar and Talib to help him teach his girlfriend's rival, Ja, a lesson. Out of loyalty, they agreed without hesitation. They owed Junior a lot. Later that day, the group drove around in Junior's black Mitsubishi Montero, eventually stopping for dinner at the Ocean Bay restaurant. This was later confirmed by CCTV footage showing the three men entering the restaurant around 8 p.m. and staying for roughly an hour. According to Jamar, they left only after Junior received a text from Althea. His response, caught on CCTV, was chilling. "Okay, baby, just wait a minute." What followed was a terrifying chain of events. The men donned bonnets to conceal their identities, dragged Julie into their vehicle, and headed to a safe house. Initially, the plan was just to scare her, but things took a turn when Julie recognized Junior Wadi slipped up, mentioning Junior's name during the abduction, saying, "Jay, let's go to our turf." As the situation escalated, Julie Ann Rodelas, began pleading for her life, repeatedly saying, "Junior, Junior, I'm sorry." Wadi explained that hearing his name enraged Junior. He lashed out at Julie, furious that she had dared to speak his name. It was at this moment that the grim reality set in. Teaching her a lesson was no longer on the table. The situation had spiraled into something much darker. The terror had only just begun for Julie. Talib led her into a separate room while Junior and Wadi stayed behind. The walls echoed with Julie's terrified voice, pleading, "Please don't, please don't." And then silence. About 10 minutes later, Junior received a phone call from Althea. She had been crying when a police officer found her after the abduction and was now at the station giving a statement. Althea's version of events lined up with this. She had asked Junior to pick her up from the station. Junior, without hesitation, left the safe house, leaving Talib, Bob, and another man, Abdb, behind to watch over Julie. Wadi claimed that after Junior left, he too decided to return home and sleep. But later that night, he was woken by Bob, who seemed alarmed. A man known as Aldos had unexpectedly shown up at the safe house, and Bob didn't know what to do. When Wadi arrived back at the scene, he found Talib standing watch outside. Inside, Aldos was talking to Julie, gripping a .45 caliber pistol. Wadi confronted him. "JR left her in our care. Don't mess with her," he warned. But Aldos wasn't one to back down. "What's the problem? Why don't you grant me this favor?" he retorted. Wadi repeated his warning, reminding Aldos that their orders were to protect Julie. But Aldos pushed further. "That's all? You're going to throw her away anyway. Let me use her first." In the final moments of Julie Rodelas' life, JR returned to the safe house carrying a fast food burger meal. He handed it to Wadi, who approached the door of the room where Julie was being held and passed the meal inside. Wadi explained that this gesture was a signal to Aldos that JR had arrived and that Wadi was stepping back. Aldos responded coolly, "It's okay. I'm done." The atmosphere shifted into something even more chilling when Aldos asked, "What's the next move?" Talib reportedly replied, "JR said shoot to kill." Aldos, holding the power of life and death in his hands, turned to Julie and told her to eat the food, reassuring her that she would be taken home soon. Unaware of what awaited her, Julie refused the meal, saying she would eat once she got home. Wadi, growing increasingly uncomfortable, distanced himself from the escalating events. He left the scene but continued to request updates. According to Wadi's testimony, Aldos later admitted that he was the first to shoot Julie, followed by Talib. She had been shot 5 times in the head. When Wadi learned about this, he reportedly reacted with shock, managing only to mutter, "That's too much." Around 5 a.m., Julie's lifeless body was dumped on the roadside. As if the cruelty wasn't enough, she was shot once more. This time, the sound of the gunshot woke the surrounding neighborhood. Wadi's statement, chilling and unflinching, provided a final devastating revelation. Julie had been sexually assaulted multiple times before her murder. The post-mortem examination would later confirm this horrific fact. Wadi's testimony was so critical that the prosecution considered him their star witness. Justice and trial. The investigation didn't stop after the initial arrests. Police launched a relentless manhunt for the remaining suspects, Efren Talib and the man known only as Aldos, both of whom, according to Wadi, were directly responsible for sexually assaulting and killing Julie, all under the orders of JR. In the aftermath, charges began to mount. Althea, JR, Wadi, and Jalan Pasawian were all formally charged with kidnapping and murder. Meanwhile, the two fugitives, Aldos and Talib, faced additional charges of sexual assault and murder. On November 22, 2012, during the arraignment, both Wadi and Pasawian pleaded not guilty. Their defense argued that they were passive participants with no direct involvement in Julie's murder. Althea and JR refused to enter pleas, leaving the court to submit not guilty pleas on their behalf. Following the proceedings, the court ordered Althea and JR to be transferred to the Quezon City Jail, while Wadi and Pasawian remained in custody at the CIDG in Camp Cram. In the meantime, Althea and JR's legal team filed a motion to quash, aiming to have the charges dismissed due to what they claimed were unlawful arrests. However, this motion was swiftly dismissed by the Quezon City Regional Trial Court. In February 2013, Judge Cadad Walero ruled that the police acted lawfully in making warrantless arrests, citing the strong evidence linking the defendants to Julie's kidnapping and murder. The court found that the circumstances surrounding the crime justified the suspicion and arrests within 2 to 4 days of Julie's body being discovered. Meanwhile, Jalan Pasawian's case took a different turn. With insufficient evidence linking him directly to Julie's murder, he was instead charged with illegal possession of a firearm. In January 2013, Pasawian was temporarily released on bail set at 80,000 pesos. But this temporary freedom would lead to his doom. On the morning of June 15, 2013, Pasawian was shot and killed while eating breakfast with his family at their home in Quezon City. According to reports, a neighbor named Nasher Alansa barged into Pasawian's house around 5:30 a.m. and opened fire. Despite the shocking and violent nature of the crime, Pasawian's widow, Samira, refused to allow crime scene investigators into their home. She even signed a waiver declining any investigation into her husband's death. I wonder if the hitman was hired to silence another witness who could testify against his friends. But we may never know the truth. Throughout this turbulent legal battle, Julie's family has remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. Her brother, Alvin, spoke openly about their hope that the remaining fugitives, Efren Talib and Aldos, will eventually be brought to justice. According to Wadi's testimony, these two men were the ones who brutally assaulted and shot Julie under JR's orders. The Rodelas family has vowed to continue fighting until the full extent of justice is served. As of September 2024, 12 years after the tragic death of model and TV personality Julie, the Quezon City Regional Trial Court is finally set to render its verdict. The long-awaited conclusion to this high-profile case has been marred by repeated delays. Initially, the ruling was scheduled for July 12, 2024. But Judge Cadad Walero postponed it. First to August 23 due to a case inventory, then to August 27 for a caravan in Davao City, and finally to September 27. The Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption, VACC, alongside the Rodelas family, have expressed frustration over these delays. Attorney Manuel Obadoza Jr. of VACC criticized the court for the repeated rescheduling, raising concerns about the justice system. Now, it's unclear whether the trial has begun or if it has faced another heart-wrenching delay. For the family, 12 long years after Julie's life was cut short, they continue to hope the court will deliver a verdict that finally brings closure and a semblance of justice for Julie. But no matter how much justice can be achieved in the courts, until these two men, who have remained free for over a decade, are also caught, there will never be any true justice for Julie